Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week for Sector 534 is Bobby. Welcome back, Bobby.
Hello, thanks for having me. Welcome, Brokettes. Looking forward to this week's episode.
This will be this might as well be an earnings call for Warner Brothers Discovery because we did get a lot of information from David Zaslav following last week. But first, if this was your very first episode, the way we format the show is we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the more personal side of the show, which is the Brokehead block, what Bobby and I have been watching, playing, reading, what's been making us broke since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 534. First off, Netflix, in a move to try to get more subscribers, has officially launched its cheaper ad tier service for $6.99 a month, cheaper than Twitter. The ad version of Disney Plus is set to launch in December, with Disney raising the prices for ad-free Disney Plus and both versions of Hulu with and without ads. So a lot of these services, HBO Max did it recently, Disney Plus is about to do it, and Netflix is offering that cheaper version, has kind of gone into this tiered service for a lot of consumers where they're hoping that this will bring in people that can't quite afford the full ad-free version or don't mind sitting around for the ads.
I don't know how I feel about this because ads suck and everybody complains about commercials. So if a service is going to add an ad tier service that's cheaper, I guess their thinking is, okay, it's less than what we normally charge. So I'm sure they tested it, but it seems a little weird. It's not something that I would think about if I was looking for a service, if there was an ad tier that I would pay for. So it's not for me. I'd rather just pay the full price like I've been paying and get the ads, because if there are ads already in there, it's not a big deal.
Do you think this is an excuse for companies to raise the prices on the ad-free tier as it is? Because it seems like every time they're like, okay, we're going to raise prices on our services, but we're introducing this ad-free version. Do you think that's a way for them to kind of mix that up and say, kind of take a lesser blow to raising their prices?
Yes, I think that's the ploy. Because if you already have a service, let's say Disney Plus, for example, or even now Netflix, you're paying like $22 a month. And with HBO, I think you're paying, what is it, 10 or 12?
It's 14 if you want ad-free. But if you get the full year, it's 12, and now it's even cheaper.
Introducing that and dropping the price of an existing tier, it makes it seem like you're getting a value. So maybe that's their ploy is, hey, we'll put this basement price in at almost half the price or a few dollars less, and we'll see if people sign up. Or maybe they drop a tier. I guess they have to fear that too. What if people sign up for the cheaper version, drop the top tier for the ads? Even in that scenario, they kind of win because aren't they making the money off of the ads that are playing?
Right. Plus, how many people that are already used to ad-free are going to go, yeah, sign me up for ads. I know I won't.
Yeah, so maybe that's the ploy too. Like, hey, we'll do this, and which is interesting though, because then they take the hit on the lower sub. However, we don't know what that money is on the back end for every sub that goes down for the ad revenue to make on the ad. I don't know. It's an interesting equation. For us, it makes us wonder, like, what the hell, they're losing money, but there's got to be a lot of money involved with the ad system.
Well, let us know if you ended up going for the ad tier on Netflix. If that was if you're a brokehead that left Netflix and now you're like, all right, $7 a month, I can afford that, then let us know on Twitter. But following last Thursday's Warner Brothers Discovery quarterly earnings call, this was all led by CEO David Zaslav. I tuned into the call, and he was clearly reading something, just a long pages and pages of earnings, which I get, and investors were tuning in. But he said that there are a new round of cuts coming, and the company has now increased its cost-cutting goal to $3.5 billion, hoping to continue digging out of its $50 billion in debt that it inherited from Warner Brothers, from AT&T, from everyone that is now fired from Warner Brothers. So according to Bloomberg, Warner Brothers Discovery will be cutting between 5% and 10% of the staff at Warner Brothers Pictures, with additional cuts planned for the home entertainment division later on. So in total, we're talking 20 to 30 employees that are going to be informed of their cuts by the end of this month.
This is wild to think about, and to consider that they've already done a lot of cutting and they're going to do some more cutting for obvious reasons. We know there's a lot of debt that was inherited, and that was the plan all along, is to take this area that has not been doing well and fix it, clearly. Like, do we know how much money they've made up so far?
He mentioned that in the earnings call, and he was trying to cut $2.5 billion, which they were able to meet, but now they're increasing it to $3.5 billion as a cost-cutting goal. So he's basically adding to the cuts to try to dig out of the $50 billion.
That's crazy. So everything we've seen so far is just the $2.5 billion. So
Right.
they're increasing one more billion, so there's more damage coming. Makes you wonder what's going to be next. I mean, 20, 30 employees is barely anything into that 1 billion. So they're clearly going to either write off some more films or close some divisions. It is Warner Brothers Game Studios a part of this slice?
Yeah, from what I understand, they were trying to sell it off a few months ago, and now it's not for sale, but I'm sure it's for sale. It's Warner Brothers Discovery. They're trying to earn money wherever they can, and it wouldn't shock me if they accepted someone's sale of the gaming division.
Yeah, that's clearly going to go. My speculation, and I think I've read it a couple times, is the second that the Blizzard Activision deal either does not go through or goes through, then the Warner Brothers studios will come back up, because then that's when Microsoft can buy another studio, because they can't buy while they're actively engaged in this transaction. So we'll see, because that's just one big giant going after one. But that's something like, Sony could always go after that, or even EA.
That'd be good. I'd like Microsoft to do some Batman games. That'd be awesome, having that on Game Pass. It'd be fun, but we're going to see what happens and what David Zaslav plans. I'm sure with how the next quarter goes, they'll determine where they stand on their trajectory, on how quickly they get to 50 billion. And it's going to take some time. AT&T, they did a lot of damage in the years that they owned Warner Brothers. And Zaslav did address the cutting of shows and movies like Batgirl and Infinity Train. He said, quote, "We have the ability to look across our cable channels. What are we spending on shows, and where are they working, and where are we getting a good return? All those write-offs that we took shows off these platforms, we didn't take one show off a platform that was going to help us in any way. It's going to help us to get it off the platform so that we can now invest with the knowledge of what is working and replace those shows with content that has a chance to be more successful, have a larger audience, and we're reallocating the capital," end quote. So basically, in black and white, he was saying that they did not believe that a movie like Batgirl or that a show like Infinity Train, which is now back on YouTube, all these people that are like, they're deleting these shows forever so that people can't watch them. It's nonsense. It's just going on a different platform. Or in Batgirl's case, it's their right because it never released. So it's not like something that did get deleted from any kind of service or platform. And he's saying that he did not believe that these things had a shot at making money for them.
If they're going to cut things and take them away, then that's how they're going to. We knew this was coming. This was announced originally when everything was taken over. So it's just the people complaining and upset that, visions are being taken away and creators are being erased. In the end, it is what it is, and it's what's going to happen. If they're going to try to, if they bought all this to clear the slate and make money to delete the debt, then this is what's going to happen. It'd be different if they were taking away things that were good, but we're not seeing that. They're just taking away things that nobody really cares about or has lost interest or is actually losing money.
Right. They have access to these numbers, the streaming numbers, and for all these films like The Flash, Batgirl, these were all screened for him. And then from there, he made the decisions of, okay, we're going to, for example, The Flash, we're going to tweak that script. We're going to order reshoots and make that better. And then for something like Batgirl, they called it irredeemable is the word that came out of Warner Brothers Discovery. So they're like, we can't save this at all. So let's just get the tax write-off on this one. And that's what ended up happening. So I do like that he is doubling down on it. And he's saying, this is the truth of it. We don't believe in it. And instead, we're going to take that money and invest it into things that we think will be more successful.
The Batgirl thing, I think, creates a different, interesting topic from many different sides. Obviously, is that one never saw the light of day. So there's no reviews like that, like, oh, this movie did bad in the theaters, or upon release on this network it did this. Like, there wasn't that, because it never saw that light of day. It didn't even come out of full production. So I think that one specifically has a bigger smell around it because of that. And I see why it gets all the criticism. But we also have to understand the amount of money that was invested in it that could have been lost. And that's obviously why he made that decision. But that's why it's got this weird stink around it, because clearly a lot of people worked on that film. It was nearly done. They were just in the editing phases, and it never came to see the light of day. So yeah, there's only a handful of people that saw that film for what it was, and technically not even finished because it was raw and not completely edited. At the end of the day, they're making business decisions, and that was unfortunately a cut that they had to make. Good for them, they made all the money because it's a tax write-off. Bad for them and the people involved is that's a project that they can't really pin to a resume or say we did this, because unfortunately it was closed. So that's the sad part of it. Good part of it, hopefully this is a good way to make the money and move forward on the business decisions that they're actively working on.
Well, something that they are not currently, as far as anyone knows, working on is Harry Potter, as Variety is reporting that Warner Brothers Discovery has no Harry Potter or Wizarding World movies in any stage of development. So that includes the ongoing Fantastic Beasts film series, which was supposed to have 2 more films, and now it's looking like that's not happening, which is not a huge surprise. I ended up watching the last part 3, on HBO Max, and it does have this ending of, all right, it's over, it's done. There's no cliffhanger ending like in the last one or even the one before that. And honestly, I'm kind of glad that we're not getting 2 more, because the numbers, one, have just gone down after each sequel, and there's too much anti-Johnny Depp or pro-Johnny Depp stuff around this film that honestly are not going to make it good for parts 4 and 5. And they probably don't have the money anyway to invest in something that big. It would have to have a smaller budget based on the earnings, and it's a Harry Potter film. They really can't do too much of a small budget on those kinds of films, and movies that honestly are looking like they're going down in flames. So instead, shift that focus into something else.
Yeah, Harry Potter films just are heavy in budget because of the amount of CGI that they use, and pleasing that fan base is incredibly tough because they have a vision and that's what they want. It's sort of like Lord of the Rings and
Star Wars.
Star Wars is another big one. I wouldn't include Marvel. Marvel's its own damn weird thing. But the fact that the last 2 Fantastic Beasts films did not do all that well, especially this most recent one, and the change in actor, like Mads Mikkelsen is a great actor, but you can tell clearly he mailed it in. Like he just showed up. Like he was there, but as good as an actor he is, I did not feel like he took that role and did something with it. He just showed up. Like, oh, cool. You want me to fulfill this role by somebody else? All right, cool. Give me my check. Thank you. And that being said, like Harry Potter's a cash cow. WB clearly knows that. And they're probably going to take their time. And if they're going to do something, they're going to make sure it's done right, because the amount of money they're going to have to invest in it. And after the past 2 films that they made not doing amazing, I'm sure they're going to be careful, because they know that that's a franchise that they have that can compete with some of the other big heavyweights out there, like we just discussed, Star Wars, etc.
Well, it sounds like there is a future, at least, for Harry Potter, as during the Q3 earnings call, David Zaslav expressed a desire to prioritize several movie franchises, which does include Harry Potter. He said he hopes to work on the franchise with the original author, J.K. Rowling, saying, quote, "If we can do something with J.K. on Harry Potter going forward," end quote. Which is a very hot take. A lot of people do not like J.K. Rowling. A lot of people were saying that they need to... Matt was saying, I think 2 appearances ago for his, of they should just pay her out at this point and say, okay, how much is it going to take for you to sign over Harry Potter so that we can do what we want with it and not have you involved in a way that is going to upset the fans. But Zaslav seems to not mind any of that and instead goes, let's work with her, put out a Harry Potter thing, and then hope that the fans don't boycott it because she's involved.
I agree that he needs to do something and get something deep in the roots of that franchise, but not involving her. He should have never invoked her name either. That doesn't put him in a good light with that fan base. She needs to go. She shouldn't be involved at all. It's her property. She wants to sell it off for the, 20 seconds that she was involved in that special that came out last year. That was stupid. I didn't want to see her in that thing. Maybe that's something that they're working on in the background, making up some of this debt. They're trying to put up a bankroll to buy everything out from her. Hopefully they do at some point and just it goes forward and we don't have to hear about her ever again. I know we have the new park opening with Universal, so they're going to have some Harry Potter stuff involved there, universe-wise. So they're probably going to try to tie a movie release into the opening of that park so that they can have a multi kind of like marketing campaign around it. That's that, for those of you unaware, it's called Epic Universe. And it's going to be the fourth Universal park that's opening. And it's going to have for Orlando, it's going to have the Super Nintendo world in it. Because in California, they're inserting it into Universal Studios over there in Hollywood. So with the Harry Potter that they're going to insert into there, hopefully that's something that they have plans on the back burner for a new film. Because I think it originally was supposed to tie into Fantastic Beasts, because like you said, there's still 2 more films that were on that slate. But as far as we know, they're not even working on the next one in that series. It's just all on hold.
Is Super Mario Brothers opening first in Florida, or are we getting that Harry Potter expansion first?
The Super Mario in the US is going to open in Hollywood first. It's being worked on now. I think it opens next year. The Orlando one got delayed because of COVID, so
got it.
They're actively working on that park now. The scheduled open date for the park, I think, is 2024, 2025. But there is supposed to be the Super Mario Land there, as well as the Harry Potter section. There's also going to be a How to Train Your Dragon section and rumored Pokemon section, but I don't think there's been too much clarity on that at the moment. Because if we get that doesn't exist anywhere else. Only Orlando will have it. Seeing as we're getting a whole new park to dedicate for these things, that kind of makes sense. There's just more room. Whereas the other parks, they're just inserting some areas.
That would be amazing. I remember Japan had a theme park based on Pokemon that closed, I want to say in the 2000s, it might have even been the 90s. But it sounds, I know that with today's fan base, adults, people my age that grew up on Pokemon, they now have kids that are getting into Pokemon. I mean, you and I see it all the time with kids that are just getting into Pokemon for the first time. It's still happening all the time. So there is an installed future fan base for Pokemon here in the theme parks as well. All of that is a huge moneymaker, and it might even be bigger than Mario, to be honest with you, as far as the parks and as far as merch.
Yeah, it just spreads everywhere. I mean, it's pretty much household at this point. They got the shows on Netflix. That's how kids are seeing it. And then it's just everywhere in the stores, and kids talk about it at school, and it spreads like wildfire.
We've got some DC news on a future film, as on the Brian Scott podcast, comedian George Lopez spoiled that Batman will make an appearance in the Blue Beetle film.
It'll be a worldwide release.
Oh, wow.
Because it's DC. So when they sent the offer, there's an offer for one movie, and then under it, there's 10 more offers for other.
Wow. So you said the kid from Cobra Kai
is going to be
the Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
the
so
uncle.
cool.
And I'm the uncle in the Blue Beetle.
That is so cool, George.
Which is big, man. I mean, I've had quite a career, but to get involved in the DC universe is big. Batman.
Yeah.
And I think Batman is in our movie, but it's a big, big deal.
Yeah. DC got everybody.
And nobody knows
heroes, man,
right now but you guys.
I mainly included this. I'm not seeing it. I'm boycotting all of this, but mainly for the fact that I thought it was interesting that they're inserting, and this was all what David had mentioned before, he wants to put Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman as the forefront of the DC universe. So now Batman's appearing in the Flash film. Several Batman are appearing in that one. They now have Batman shooting additional scenes. I think they finished already, but for Aquaman 2, and now Batman's going to show up for Blue Beetle. So it sounds like David wants to insert these big characters. Superman just showed up in Black Adam. His strategy is to put these iconic characters into these DC films as a way to hopefully raise the ticket pricing, hopefully get more people out to see this film, just like they do in comics, where you'll have a solo or a one-shot, or you'll have a comic that kicks off, and then they throw in some of the Justice League members just to try to sell some issues.
So first of all, if this is George Lopez, the comedian, why are we supposed to believe this?
You think he's lying?
Well, why would he slip out there like that he's called for 10 appearances and then saying that Batman's going to make an appearance? So either that's like, hey, let's start spilling this out there to get some early free marketing out there, or he's just being a comedian. I don't know which way to think about it. Honestly, I don't care. It's a Blue Beetle movie that nobody cared about anyways, right? Mm-hmm. So even with a comedian that you like and he's going to be in this movie, you still don't care about the film. So I don't see the relevance of any of this. If we're going to make films that nobody cares about and have to spill in Justice League characters to make people go watch them, what are we doing here? And the next question behind that, what Batman are we looking at? Is this going to be Tiny Teeth Batman, or is this going to be Ben Affleck Batfleck, or is this going to be some new Batman? What are we doing? Is this going to be a multiverse Batman? Are we going to get the one from the 80s, like Michael Keaton? Because we got the Flash movie. Like, what the heck are we doing?
That's what people were also asking. Yeah, if it was which Batman. But I think from the sounds of it, especially with Ben now contracted to show up in Aquaman 2, it sounds like Zaslav wants Ben to be that guy. I'm hearing rumors, too, that they're about to announce a Ben Affleck solo film. But I don't know. That's why they're saying that it's going to be Ben Affleck as the Batman for this universe. But as you mentioned, and I mentioned, I don't care. It's Blue Beetle. It's the last runoff. I think it's the last runoff from the Hamada decisions of let's give Blue Beetle his own film. And I guess this is Zaslav's way of like, all right, well, let's try to not lose a ton of money on this. Throw Batman in here and hope that people show up just for the Batman scene.
On top of that, like, and this is no dig on Batfleck. We all love Batfleck, but are we just going to keep stringing him along for 10-minute appearances in movies after they released The Batman was that last year or earlier this year, and expect the fans to try to understand what's going on with a Batman? Like, it just doesn't. Now we're playing with different things that is weird. And unless the Flash movie explains that and has a proper understanding of what's going on, like, this is all a mess at this point. Like, they moved on to a different Batman. Now we're going to go to a different Batman. And then they're going to do this weird explanation of how there's different timelines, or no, it's okay because this Battinson is because of this, and this Batfleck is because of this. Like, at that point, nobody cares. It's like, okay, well, what Marvel movie is coming out next? That's what's going to happen. So
right,
that's what I fear.
With the little bit that I'm following, I can tell you for sure that the changes that happened with the Flash film are originally before Discovery bought this up, the Flash film was going to erase Ben Affleck and erase Superman. And they were going to replace him with Supergirl, Batgirl, and Michael Keaton. Those were going to be the new characters moving forward for this universe. After Zaslav and Discovery took this over, they said, no, why are we introducing new superheroes to replace the ones that people actually like? So let's recontract Henry Cavill. Let's recontract Ben Affleck. Those are the characters, Superman and Batman, that people know. And we'll have them be the Superman and Batman for this universe moving forward. And then that's why they reshot scenes in The Flash to undo the erasing of that universe. Put in a scene that says, oh, that thing with Zod and Man of Steel 2, all of that is not permanent. This is all just for the film. And then by the end of the film, Flash fixes the timeline, creates a new one, or whatever you want to call it, to where Ben Affleck and Superman are still alive. And that was Zaslav redoing all of that. And that's what I heard. That's why we're getting Ben Affleck and Superman and Gal Gadot back in this universe again.
Well, we'll see what happens. And that's another thing, like you just mentioned Gal Gadot. Like, we've seen Superman and Batman show up in some of these other films. Wonder Woman has not showed up in anything, right? It's just been those other two.
Right, 1984. And I don't know if she shows up in Shazam too. Who knows? But yeah, so far it's just been, at this moment, Superman and Batman.
Which is funny to me because, like, she's had 2 films already, and granted the second one wasn't that good, but the fact that they've got another Trinity member and Gal Gadot's great, right? Why aren't they like rolling her out somewhere? I mean, unless they just know it doesn't make sense to roll her out in any of those films for a cameo. That's a piece that they have sorely been missing out on. And Blue Beetle's probably not the right appearance either, right? Because he's more tied into a Batman side of things regardless. So I guess that's the biggest complaint, is they don't have a film that they can insert her into that makes sense if you think about it. But regardless, I just thought about that. It's weird that we've seen Batman and Superman show up in other films, but not Wonder Woman.
And supposedly they're still working on part 3 for Wonder Woman, and Patty Jenkins is involved, unfortunately, still. So I don't have a lot of hope for it. Jeff Johns also is helping in writing the script for Wonder Woman 3. Patty had mentioned in an interview that they had just finished the first draft of it. So it's coming, and I hope it might be worse than 1984. I don't know. It might be just as bad. But she has her solo project still. We're probably going to get the Wonder Woman film before we get Superman 2, Man of Steel 3, whatever you want to call it, and the solo Batman film. So I wouldn't be shocked if Wonder Woman is the first one on the slate here.
I don't know. Her project over at Disney's on hold too. The Rogue Squadron, they took that off the calendar. So something's going on with her. She's just not hitting her stride anymore.
Yeah, they took her off of that, and I don't know if they fully canceled it, but that was also what we were talking about last week of Kathleen Kennedy got told by Disney, stop announcing these projects because they keep not happening. You're announcing them too early. and it's like, oh shit, that's true. And you just brought up this one. I'm like, that's another film that was announced that now isn't happening in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. It's not that it's not happening. It's just on hold. So they didn't cancel it yet. She's still involved with it. They just took it off the calendar. Sorry, not took it off the calendar. They slid it further back without a certain date for whatever reason. So obviously production writing is behind. Maybe approvals, obviously feedback, because they're starting to roll out these different shows on Plus, and some shows are doing better than others. Andor is doing particularly well. They're getting a lot of good feedback on that one. So it's when they do like Mando, because Mando's coming back for season. What are they in? Season 4? I think season 4 is coming back in December, and then they have that show that did not do too well with the other bounty hunter. Boba Fett was a weird one. So I think after doing Boba Fett, they got a little awkward feedback. But now with Andor, they've got some better footing. So who knows?
We also got more from David Zaslav as he confirmed that the combined HBO Max Discovery Plus streaming service will no longer roll out in the summer of 2023, but even earlier, debuting in the spring of next year instead. So the launch of the service, which doesn't have a name yet, will begin in the US before rolling out to other regions in the following months in 2023, with Europe not getting a service until 2024, at least that combination not happening until 2024. Zaslav went on to confirm that the new service will be combining the product design that they use on Discovery Plus, but bolstering it with the content that's available on HBO Max. So that to me tells me that the Discovery app is going to be the main one that's going to get changed, and the HBO Max one is they're just taking the content and moving it over to Discovery Plus, basically.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. We'll have to see how that rolls out. Also the name. Hopefully they don't make it a confusing name. They should just name it Debt.
I think it's going to be that long-ass Warner Brothers Discovery name, unfortunately.
God, I hope not. That is not... They have to do something catchy, and that's just not catchy. Hopefully they just come up with some acronym and just call it a day.
Someone was saying just call it HBO still, or Discovery HBO, because HBO is a name that people like. For a lot of people, it means quality. And you can't get rid of Discovery, the name, because that's where they have HD TV. A lot of money makers for them. People love that shit. So you want to keep them on. All the people that are over 50 years old that are watching Discovery for those shows, you can't get rid of Discovery from that app. So what do you add on to it? I do think HBO would be the smart move. I don't think it should be Discovery Plus or Warner Brothers or Warner Max. I don't know if any of those would work, to be honest with you. They need to keep Discovery and add to it.
It's an easy one. Just call it HBOD. Done.
HBOD? All right.
HBOD. HBOD for
yes.
HBO Discovery. So, and if they want to get cute, they can go back to the roots and call it Home Box Office Discovery. That's all they need to do, and just call it HBOD. No plus. Take away the plus. Just HBOD. Because everybody else has the pluses now, and it's confusing. Just HBOD.
HBOD.
Retro marketing, and that way it looks like, bring back that old HBO logo, the da 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 da, like everybody loves that orchestra song, and it's like old school HBO. That's what we want.
Yeah, I remember that, going through the fucking city and then the lights.
Yeah, as the whole logo turns and you go through the O and you got all the streaming lights, and then it comes out and you got the full HBO logo.
and then just slap the D at the end, like, all right, there it is. And there's the HD TV shows for you, the home shopping or whatever the fuck it is. Repair your home shows that they have, all those.
And Fraggle Rock for all us old folk.
The last bit of news we have this week does come from the Ayer Cut event. So there was a major Release the Ayer Cut trending event on November 5th. And this is something that the RT Snyder Cut account was like, all right, we're going to participate in this. And they helped boost it. A lot of us in the movement were like, one last ride, like this is it. DC Films CEO Pedo Gunn did address the Ayer fans. So after the next day, after this all trended, he did address it. He said on Twitter, quote, opened up Twitter at the end of a long creative weekend to see the many tweets to hashtag Save Legends of Tomorrow and hashtag Release the Ayer Cut and fan support for other DC projects over the years. The majority of these requests were enthusiastic and respectful. As the new and first ever CEOs of DC Studios, Peter and I think it's important we acknowledge you, the fans, and let you know we hear your different desires for the pathways forward for DC. But all our initial focus is on the story going forward, hammering out the new DCU, and telling the biggest story ever told across multiple films, television shows, and animated projects. We invite all of the DC fandoms from across the multiverse, and everyone else as well, into this new universe. We can't wait to reveal more. End quote. So I don't know if you have the same takeaway as many of us did, but that to me tells me we hear you. However, we're moving forward with a different vision.
Yeah, rather than falling on deaf ears and ignoring it, he's acknowledging everything that's out there to try to appease some people. And at the same time, giving a political statement about, all right. But stay tuned. We're going to give you some stuff that you probably don't want to hear.
Right.
Also, one important bit in there, he says hammering out the new DCU. Did he on purpose say DCU instead of DCEU? Are we moving away from what they created with the EU and now it's just going to be DCU?
So as part of the announcement of Gunn being the head of DC Films, they changed the name from DC Studios to DC Films. I'm sorry, from DC Films to DC Studios. So now there's Marvel Studios and there's DC Studios. They are also now saying that it's no longer the DCEU, but that it's officially the DC Universe.
There we go. Okay. Quack. Whatever.
I love that they're just, they got the Marvel guy. They've got the Marvel name now. Now we're going to get more Marvel movies from James Gunn. And this is something that I totally understand the frustrations from the fan bases. I personally did not expect Gunn to be supportive of it, even though in the past people were screenshotting his tweets from less than a year ago of him saying, I support whatever Ayer and Warner's wants to do. Basically him saying, sure, I'd release the Ayer Cut, but now that he maybe can or can't, or Warner Brothers told him, no, we're not going to release that. He has to be the PR guy and be like, we hear you, but there's other stuff coming that you're probably going to love. And that's it.
So the one weird part in all of this, and I think I mentioned this to you in the past, is this guy, as much as nobody likes him or dislikes him, and obviously there's a large amount of folks that do, he's done some things. He could be the one that brings back Zack Snyder and restarts everything that everybody wants. So I think everyone needs to be careful on how they tread through this and just wait and see what happens. Because if everybody's too proactive in, oh, screw that guy, the Marvel's taking over. But at the same token, like, what if he is the one that actually brings back Zack Snyder and not restarts, but continues what everybody's been asking for on top of some other crap that he needs to do, obviously. So I think it's just wait and see at this point. And when everything or certain things start getting erased, that's when you can just start writing things off.
I've heard that sentiment from a few people, and even the Ayer Cut account itself, they were saying, make sure to be respectful. Do not bring up the fact that he's a pedo in tweets when you tag him. And they were saying, we need to do this because if we put a ton of negativity out there, these news stories like Newsarama, comicbook.com, they're going to spin these as the toxic movement wants to release the Ayer Cut.
Toxic fan base. Yep.
Right. So they were saying, just be positive, enthusiastic, and just ask for the Ayer Cut. That's all you need to do. And, me, I was like, I'm not tagging him. I'm not groveling on James Gunn's feet. I'm not doing any of that. And I don't care what he does over there. And I think it's a little weird seeing people in the movement kind of begging James Gunn, please bring back Zack Snyder. I can't do it because, as you've asked me before at the shop, of what if he brings him back and James Gunn is the producer to Zack's Snyderverse films? Would you see it? And then that's when I was like, no, I can't see him. Like, I don't want anything to do with James Gunn as if he's attached to anything. So it'd be one of those things that I'd be like, all right, we made it. And I'd walk off I'd walk the earth because it's like, all right, I have nothing to do with this anymore because James Gunn's a producer.
You're that meme of Mr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
Just sitting there all alone.
Yeah, I'd be on the moon. Yep. That's what would happen. And for many people, that'd be good enough. They'd be like, you know what? We got it back. I don't care that James Gunn's attached. I like James. Some people like James Gunn. I'm not going to say that sentence because someone will clip it.
or like El Patron sitting on the swing set, just sitting, staring into nothingness.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be me. You know, I'm glad I know where that's from now. Okay. And is that also the same Narcos where he has his hands behind his back and he's just staring off? Is that the same show? Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's in Narcos, the first Narcos season of 4, not Narcos Mexico, but the first Narcos seasons. Like I was watching it and then I see that part and I'm like, oh my God, that's where these memes are taken from. It's so good. Because he's like in those scenes, he's reflecting because like his empire is starting to, he sees the cracks in his empire. It hasn't happened yet. And he's trying to make some serious decisions with his cartel and everything because of the changes that are going on. I'm not trying to spoil. So like he's those are not long scenes, but the memes make it seem like they're incredibly long and of course hilarious.
Well, I didn't put this on. Well, I'll add this on here right afterward. But first, I want to highlight a comment that we did get on Patreon from Adrian. He said, quote, "We are definitely in the nightmare timeline. I've gone from depressed and sad to being frustrated and pissed off. I'm trying to muster up as much motivation as I can for the November 5th Ayer Cut trending event. It's difficult. Regarding that Zack Snyder message on Josh Horowitz's podcast, I think Zack meant working with Henry on any project in the future. I want Zack to announce that he's doing Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 and that it won't be under James Gunn. I guess I'll have to wait and see what happens. Until then, it's still hashtag boycott Warner Brothers Discovery." And he said, P.S., what are scalpers? End quote. So I'll give you the honor of defining scalpers.
Scalpers are folks that buy things up and then go back and resell them at a higher value, most notably on items that are hard to find. And they'll do it to capitalize on the amount of money they can make based on the demand that is currently wanted for it. So a perfect example of that would be a PlayStation 5. You can't just walk into a store and find a PlayStation 5. Right now, maybe you can, but it's still very, very few and far between compared to the past 2 years that we've had them out. But they're still incredibly difficult to find in a store. So folks will buy those online or somehow find them in a store at retail level price and then go online and sell it for double, triple, quadruple the price. So your PS5s that you see on eBay for over $1,000, those are scalpers. That's the perfect example.
Perfect. Thank you. And I dealt with it a lot at the comic shop with people trying to come in and get the hottest issue and get multiple copies of it, which I would always limit them like, no, one per person, because I want to make sure that everyone has enough copies to have it. You know, I don't want to sell all 20 copies of this one issue to one person where I could satisfy 20 customers instead of just one, who I know is just going to sell it on eBay anyway. He's not a reader. He's not a collector. It's someone whose sole intention is to immediately put this up on eBay to make a profit. So scalpers in our industries, in the industries we've worked in, are not a good thing. It's not something that some people argue, well, yeah, but you're still selling the product. But if your primary purpose is to satisfy as many customers as you can, then you're not going to put up with scalpers coming in and trying to buy out all your product.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. And you're right. Like, yeah, the money's being made because your product's being sold, but your customer base is being shattered and splintered. So when it comes down to the scalpers moving on because they found something else to scalp, the customers that would normally come in to buy that product are now no longer to come by because the scalpers have pretty much removed them because they're constantly grabbing all the product. And that's why stores struggle and have to make the tough decisions to limit product because, yeah, they're making a decision not to actually sell product to people, but they want to make sure that it's available to the folks that are always there and going to put money into their business versus the scalpers that are one-timers that are just looking out to make money for themselves because they don't work. Like, this is their job. They're going to buy a comic book for $4 and they're going to go home. Actually, they're not going to go home. They've already posted the sale for that book a week or two ago, maybe even a month ago, and it's already sold. So they need that book immediately so they can ship it out because they've already paid the money on it. And they probably sold it as a pre-sale for like $20. And if it's a hotkey, maybe they put like $50 or $100 depending on if it's a variant cover or something. So that thing happens all the time. It's not just comic books or video game systems. I mean, it can be simple items in your local Target, Walmart, Meijer, or any grocery store that you have near you, or merchandise store. That stuff happens daily with many different common products. It's unfortunate and it sucks, but it's something that in our days of the internet and how things are sold and traded online, that's just how it goes these days. People have found niches to, sit comfortably and do that and not have a job. They just constantly make money off of other people, and it sucks.
When I worked at the comic shop, I never went out of my way for scalpers either. I never gave them amazing service or anything like that because I knew, as you were mentioning, these are people that only show up for the hot product and you never see them again until 2 months down the line when the next key issue comes out. Whereas your regulars that are there every week supporting your shop, those are the ones that you want to help out. Those are the ones that you're like, maybe if they're great customers and they're not resellers, I didn't do this, but I heard of other shops that would set aside a couple copies of something and be like, look, I'll hook you up because I know you're not doing this just to eBay it, or I know you're a good customer. Here, I have an extra one. Let me sell you that one. So that stuff does happen, but with scalpers, as soon as they know that they don't have the thing that you want, that they want, or you're going to limit them, they just buy it and leave, and you don't see them again until the next, again, hot item. So for me, fuck scalpers. I don't like them. I'm not a fan. But I've also gone through years of navigating those shores, and especially in a post-COVID world of that being, they spiked up. They came out like crazy during the shutdowns.
Fortunate for us, in our line of work, our company's big enough to where we get a lot of stuff. So I don't have to worry about, in most cases, restricting product because we have so much of it. So I let the scalpers, as you've seen, run wild with it. And it's funny because watching you just spend the amount of money that they do, and I still got tons of product left. So we essentially laugh at them because they're the idiots for buying all this stuff as we watch the market crumble behind us because that stuff's not selling like it used to. The good part is we make all the money.
I do appreciate Adrian commenting in, and he and I went through the same emotions of depression, sadness, and then anger. That's exactly. And we weren't the only ones. I saw it on Twitter where we were all like, God damn, this sucks. Pedo gun, blah, blah, blah. And then it became, you know what? Fuck them. They really don't want to make money, then so be it. It quickly churned very quickly by that same night. And thankfully, the movement did come together for the Ayer Cut trending event, which, again, we didn't see anything come out of it right away. Maybe we will. I'm not too sure. But he does seem to also think that the Henry Cavill comment with Zach was simply Zach saying, I can't wait to work with you in the future, as in any project, not necessarily that he's going to be directing Superman. And I didn't put this in the show notes, but since it does relate to what Adrian had posted, this just broke within the last day or so on the Preston and Steve YouTube channel. They had Zack Snyder on, and it's around the 2 hour and 50 something minute mark. You can find the clip on Twitter. I had retweeted it. But they straight up ask Zach, who's right now still doing work on Rebel Moon. I think they just wrapped up principal photography and now they're going into post. And they asked him, are you going to be working on anything with Warner Brothers Discovery? Have they called you? And he said, no, they haven't called me. And then one of the hosts said, when Henry Cavill showed up in Black Adam, I had this hope that they would give you a Superman film or another project to work on. And Zach said, I'm glad I have your support, but they haven't called me, and I'm instead working on this amazing project. He was referring to Netflix, Rebel Moon, and that he wishes them all the best, and that he hopes that they can make great superhero films. So that right there, I think, tells us still that a lot of people are like, well, he has an NDA, he can't say anything. And I'm like, I think he'd be hinting a lot stronger if he was set up to do something for Warner Brothers Discovery. I think Zach I believe them in this clip of, he's not worried about reaching out to or hearing from Warner Brothers Discovery, and they're not interested in him. They're interested in James Gunn, and Zach is just focused on finishing this parts 1 and 2 of Rebel Moon.
Interesting. We'll have to see where all this goes. I still think there's a big cloud of doubt. Back to what Adrian was asking, and even you alluded to, and the rest of the fan base. I think it's best to just do a wait and see pattern. Fight for what you want and just wait and see, because who knows where this is going to go. And obviously, when something goes array or wrong, then the pitchforks could come back out. Right. I just think that there's way too much uncertainty, especially with all the change in leadership. All the bad people that everybody wanted out are gone. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's a new person in that for the most part, people don't like. But to be fair, this dude has brought in a lot of money where he was. So it may not be quality like the fan base wants here. However, who knows where this may go. So I guess it's just wait and see. And then when things start panning out to where nobody likes it, then we can, everybody can start taking some sides. Obviously the boycotts and, the way feelings are about certain things will stay. But I just think it's, we need to see Rebel Moon finish. And then I think that's where we'll see Zach hopefully slide back in. Who knows?
And that's another thing where, at least if I can look at this at the worst case scenario, we don't see Zach come back for Justice League parts 2 and 3. I'll have Rebel Moon parts 1 and 2, which I believe he filmed back to back. So those are going to come out for Netflix over the next couple of years. He's got the Army of the Dead universe still. He has an animated film that he was working on, or animated series for Netflix. And Jay Oliva said on Twitter that they can't talk about that because that's for Netflix to announce. So even though we know it's coming, they can't give details on the Army of the Dead universe until Netflix says that they can. So he said that on Twitter yesterday because they kept asking him, like, when are we getting more Army of the Dead stuff? We haven't heard a thing since the last project. And Jay's like, ask Netflix, because they're the ones who get to announce that stuff. So it sounds like we're getting more from Zach from Netflix. But I know that quote for me, with him saying, I wish them luck, even if I wanted to be positive and think, well, he's referring to James Gunn's films that he wants to make over at DC Films, but he's got something else over here with DC Black Label that they haven't announced yet. Any of that shit, I don't have hope like that. But I'm instead going, okay, well, if this is what Zach is saying, I can at least be grateful that we have Rebel Moon 1 and 2 coming out, which I know are probably going to be amazing based on Zach's track record, and then some more from the Army of the Dead universe. That's where I stand right now. I know I've got a lot of acceptance there, and I've got a lot of boycotting, like you said. Those films from DC are not for me. I do not wish them well, unlike Zach. Zach's a better person than I am. But it's one of those things that, again, they're not for me. I'm not watching them. I will instead watch the stuff that does appeal to me, like Zach's films, like The Whale coming out next month from Brendan Fraser, someone who was in that canceled Batgirl film, and instead he's going to get a ton of awards and recognition for his appearance in this. I'm positive about that based on the reception that he received at the festival. So a lot of good stuff coming still, even if it's not all Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3. There's some good stuff coming, and I'm trying to look at it that way.
Yeah, Zach's going to play nice, because you got to think of it this way. He's not going to shit in the bed that he knows is already made for him, that is not ready to be slept in yet. So it's like the bed's there. He's just not ready to go over to that room yet. So that's why he's going to play nice, because he has to. He's not going to damage a relationship for projects that he has lined up, just that hasn't been told to us yet. So that's the way I think I'm looking at it.
So you're a little more positive on it. You do think that Zach's probably going to come back?
Yeah, because why else would he not be? He'd be more against the changes or more vocal about things, because that means he's trying to get his voice heard. He's obviously not talking about it because he's under NDA for projects that are coming or he's already been signed to. And obviously they're his projects, so there's not a lot of people in that circle that are aware of those deals. I just think time needs to play out and things will occur. I'm not saying they're going to be good things, but there's going to be things that are going to occur. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see Zack Snyder back in the seat at WB doing something. It's just a matter of what. And that's why he's playing nice. He has to, or else he's just literally tearing down something before it's given to him.
So you don't think him not congratulating James Gunn on his position, he hasn't said a thing about it. He just kept his mouth shut. You don't think that is in itself a sign of like him not liking it? The Rock did the same thing. The Rock got his feelings hurt because apparently he may have been up for that role, or someone in his company might have been up for that role of head of DC Films. And as soon as they announced Gunn, Zach, again, hasn't said anything about it. And then The Rock went completely silent on Twitter for a day and still hasn't said anything positive about the James Gunn news, has instead gone into damage control of Black Adam flopped because of COVID and because superhero fatigue and all these other things. So you don't think that's maybe a thing that Zach might not approve of by him not congratulating James?
No, not at all. Because you have to look at it in the fact that these guys are smart. Rock is intelligent too. They're not going to go against a fan base. They can't be oblivious, especially Zach. He's not oblivious to what's out there. They both know that whatever they say is watched and can be easily manipulated. So if they were to congratulate James Gunn, what does that do? It riles up the base like, oh, like all these rock throwers now, all these people are going to turn, right? You're doing that before any projects are even announced. So it just creates this weird wave of just nonsense and toxicity. And The Rock is smart too. Like, of course he's going to defend his project. That's his baby. But
right.
I don't think he's doing it to where, oh, I'm mad, I'm pouting. No, it's just he's trying to take, obviously he's got a publicist. The publicists are keeping these guys in line so that they're fully aware of how toxic and topsy-turvy the fan bases are. Why stir up drama when it's not needed? Black Adam's still in theaters. It just came out. So you can't start turning weird on it and damage before it even hits Max and gets other distributions in other countries. So I think that's just the public facing that you have to do. You're going to take the hits. Like you said, he's being silent. So everybody thinks that's a pansy move. No, I just think it's smart because if he engages too much and shows his opinion, he's not a smart businessman. And then it could damage relationships later. Like we got the Snyder Cut because people asked for it, right? Mm-hmm. What if nobody asked for it? Would it have ever showed up? So you have to think of it in this terms of right now. Like if everybody turns because James Gunn's over there and everybody just wants to throw rocks, what do you think's going to happen? Zaslav will probably speak up and say at some point, like, you know what, guys, I'm done with you guys. We're moving on. Go buy your own social media network, call it Truth Believes, or whatever you want to call it, and leave us alone. We're going to make movies here because you guys are too toxic. A weird example, but that's what I'm trying to say here is like, I think they have to be careful of what they say and what they do, play their cards right, because there are obviously plans in the future and they don't want the masses on social media to turn and make things worse. They still have money to make. Like Black Adam still needs to make a lot of money so that he can't turn face and lose money because he says something stupid, if that makes sense.
Well, there you go. You've got a lot of acceptance from me and then a lot of hope from Bobby. So to you on the other side, take what you'd like from what we said here. And if you've got another take on this, please let us know on Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, Discord, of course, wherever you can, and let us know what you think. I know that a bunch of people will not be happy with Clay Staub if nothing happens this month, because he's the one who was strongly hinting. I don't know if you remember, but he would post up these pictures of, for example, Excalibur, screenshots from Excalibur or food posts. And then in the very dark shadows of these pictures, he would hide #Restore the Snyderverse in there. And then he would say, oh, we still need a little bit more time for this to be cooked. Like he would put that kind of stuff in there. And then now he tied that into a pot roast, and the pot roast being Restore the Snyderverse. And it's coming in October. This pot roast is going to be ready. And then when nothing happened in October, he said, this pot roast needs a little bit more time. November is when this pot roast should be ready. So now everyone's like, okay, if it gets restored, Clay Staub is basically saying it's going to happen this month. And if it doesn't, I know people are going to be like, what the fuck, Clay? Unless he's like, oh, the pot roast is going to be done next year.
Somebody's fishing for clicks. That's what that sounds like.
You think so?
I don't know.
It could
seems a little weird at this point.
It'd be funny. Like I would be like a little bit on that side if he were just posting that kind of stuff. Like he could easily be like, guys, I was just talking about food I make. I'm a cook. I'm a filmmaker too, but I also love cooking. But just the fact that he hid those hashtags in there, that's what makes me a little bit like, I expect something now. And that's, that can get a lot of feelings hurt at this point if nothing happens. So got a couple more weeks in November, and we'll see if Bobby's hope pays off, or in this case, if Clay, see what Clay says, and if there's any truth to what Clay is hinting at.
Just a troll stirring up the pot. That's all that is.
Could be. But there you have it. That is this week's news. A lot of Warner Brothers Discovery stuff with Zaslav. We'll see what happens Q4 in 3 months and see what the plan is at that point. But now we head into the Broket block, which is what Bobby and I have been up to since you last heard us. So Bobby, let's kick it off with you. What have you been playing, watching, reading? What's been making you broke?
Spending money on comic books. I've been sending books out to get graded. Daniel, you've been sharing some of those pictures. For those of you that want to see some of that stuff, join our Discord, check out the Collector's Corner. I post my neat books that I get back from CGC. Some of them come out looking gorgeous. Little hobby of mine, trying to build up a neat little collection. Fun fact, I'd say probably 95% of the books that I post up there, I've always had. So I didn't just chase them down and get them graded. I already had them. So I'm just slowly sending them out and getting graded. The CGC does these signature events, so I've been taking advantage of that and sending books out to get signed and graded at the same time. So it's pretty cool. Other than that, playing some games. I finished Red Dead Redemption 2, and I moved on to Far Cry 6. I'm like, I don't know, it's like 75% done with that. And at the same time, I was part of gotta watch what I say here. I was part of a beta test for a company, and it required me to play Modern Warfare 2. Not much of a COD player these days. I dislike it, but I guess maybe that's why they chose me, because that's how I responded in the surveys. So I've been playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2. I finished that this week. It's been a 2-week testing cycle, pre-release and release. So both sides of that. And it's been focused mainly on multiplayer. So it's good. Multiplayer is actually enjoyable for once. I do not like the gunsmith system. I know there's a lot of complaints about that online, the way that you unlock the parts for the guns and have to use the template to unlock another gun. It's a little confusing.
So it's different than it was before, where get 50 headshots and unlock the scope on this gun.
Correct. That's all gone. There's no goal focused. What am I trying to say here? There's no prerequisites for like shooting or doing or accomplishing this to get the parts. You just have to level up the gun, and you level up the gun by using the gun. And as you level it up, it unlocks a new attachment for different parts of the gun. So you can get the underbarrel, the muzzle, the scope, the stock, silencer. Like you can get all those different things. There's tons of ammunition. You can get ammunition this time around. Different types of rounds that you can shoot, as well as clips, laser pointers. There's all sorts of different things you can customize the gun with. You just have to play with the gun and get kills with it to earn EXP to level up the gun. And as you do that, you can see the track the whole time, so you can see what you're trying to unlock. The cool thing is some of those attachments are unlocked for other blueprints that scope out from that gun, and you just have to use the frame to build the other gun. It just requires you to unlock that frame, which is usually like, let's say there's 21 levels on the gun. You'll unlock 2 different frames, like one at maybe a level 11 and another one at like 16 or 18 or something like that. But those other frames are essentially better guns in that category. So like AK-47, you can get 2 different types of AK-47s that are better, but you just have to play with it. So it's a little confusing, and it's a longer grind, but it's not as aggressive as, like you said, getting 50 headshots with this to unlock that, because that was annoying. So I like the way they did this, but it's like when you first start playing, it's very confusing. While I was doing that, I took some breaks and I went and played the Modern Warfare 1 from I think it was 2018 or 2019. That was on PlayStation Store for like $10 one day, so I bought that. So I just went back and I played the campaign real quick, since I had Modern Warfare 2, so I can just play the campaign for that. So I just started playing the campaign for 2. The game's gorgeous. It's a complete next gen game, so I can understand why they move forward with what they did. But it's a gorgeous game. So those of you that are COD fans or on the fence about COD, Modern Warfare 2 is pretty good.
I remember having to unlock the headshots thing because I always aim for the body. They died. I don't know, like that's just the way I trained myself, is going for the center, and then that's just how I played it. So I didn't get headshots too often. And when my friends and I were like, okay, well, I need to unlock the scope. I forgot which one. Might have been Sean who told me, take the suppressor off on it, and now when you shoot from the hip, just shoot from the hip, and the recoil from the gun is going to cause the bullets to go up. So by the time you hit the third or second bullet, it'll be right on their head. And I'm like, oh, let me try that. So I did. So I'd shoot from the hip, and I'd be nailing these guys left and right with headshots. And I'm like, oh shit. So it'd be spraying upward at them. And it wasn't quicker than killing them like I normally did, but it would get me those headshots. So that's when I was like, all right, cool. And I had to do stupid shit like that just to try to get the 50 headshots quicker. I would have gotten it eventually, but it would have taken way longer based on how I played.
Sure.
Well, I'm glad that they got rid of that, and it's all XP based. It sounds like that's an improvement for sure, because if I know I like a gun, then I can just use that same weapon in multiplayer and eventually know that no matter what, as long as I'm using it and I'm knocking guys out, then I'm going to get those unlockables later on.
Yeah, and overall, like I've sunk maybe almost 40 hours into multiplayer. It feels really good. Like the sounds are great, the guns are great, just the way it plays, the maps aren't terrible. There's one really bad map. So those of you out there playing, you know where I'm going to go with this. Border Patrol map is the worst freaking map I've ever seen. I hope they remove it. Apparently, a lot of other players don't like it either. But that map sucks. Other than that, it's great. It's fun to play. There's times where you can tell there's some really good players out there, and the respawns are quick. The headquarters and the bomb squad. I forgot what the bomb one is called. All those are fun. They're just fun to play. I'm not playing with people. I'm just doing rando pickups. But if I was playing with a team of people, I think it would be even more fun.
Yeah, I used to have a blast when I play online. That was back when like Riggs was playing Call of Duty. That shit was a lot of fun. Where he'd be running around. He was the worst player on our team, but he played an important part because he'd wander off into the map and we'd be covering our corners, knocking guys out left and right. But then when he'd be like, oh, they got me, and we'd look on the map, like, okay, that's where the dot just disappeared. So we'd all rush that area, clean it out. So for the 1 point that they got, we'd get 5 or 6 because we'd just go there and it's like, all right, Riggs, keep going. And then he would wander off somewhere. Yeah. Everyone had their part. And then when he'd get the last kill, it'd always be the most mediocre kill of him, like the slow-mo cap, him missing 8 times, and then the one bullet nailing the guy. And he'd always be like, oh no, I got the last kill. And you'd see like his awful aiming, and then him get lucky and nail the guy. It was fun though. I'm glad Call of Duty's still going. I don't know when this Activision deal is set to really be finalized or not be finalized, but once that happens, they're going to see me really love Call of Duty, or not. I'll just switch back to Halo Infinite, which is still a great game. If you're looking for a more sci-fi space shooter, go with Halo Infinite, but otherwise Call of Duty right around the corner. Holiday season. That's another thing that I know you've given out some great tips in the past. Call of Duty will probably be on sale Black Friday, won't it?
That's a tough call, and there's an interesting reason why. Usually Call of Duty is every single year. Next year, there will not be a Call of Duty. So this Call of Duty game has to last a good 3 years. Or two and a half years. So it's going to be interesting how this game may not go on sale like it normally does because of that reason. It has to last a while. Because obviously when you get to September, October the next year, you're ready for a new Call of Duty and everybody gives up the old one. So this one's got to have legs. I think they laid out a pretty significant plan for DLC that's going to come to this game over the course of time. Mostly multiplayer. They got to focus a lot of support on multiplayer, obviously, to keep this going when there's not going to be a new game next year. So if you're lucky and you find it in a store for like $10 off, that's probably a value at this point. So if you want some COD, it's a good one. Take it.
There you have it. And we will see if Microsoft goes forward. Hopefully that deal goes through again. I've been actually reading you mentioned comics. I just picked up some books yesterday, and then Leo, I don't know how it came up, but I was like, I think I have the Batman TMNT comic book because he's seen the movie, but he hasn't read the comic, and he met Freddie Williams II at MegaCon. I think I might have told the story, but he saw Leo. Leo pointed at the posters. He's like, oh, look, Godzilla, look, Batman and the Turtles. I'm like, yeah, he worked on the comic. And Freddie turned to his handler and said, hey, pass me the Batman TMNT print. And he signed it and just gave it to Leo. Print that he was selling for $20. And I'm like, oh, and it's hanging up it's in a top loader in Leo's room on display. So I told him, thank you. It's one of those stories that because of that, you connect with these creators a lot more and you enjoy their books even more, knowing that there's someone good behind it kind of thing. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I own the trade. And I do. I have it, the Batman TMNT trade. So I took that out and I'm like, hey, Leo, why don't that poster, that print that you have? It's from this book and it's literally the cover of the trade. So I showed it to him and he's like, oh, let's read it. So we're about a fourth of the way through. He wants to keep reading it. I'm reading it for him, doing the voices. Batman he's like, who are these monsters from another dimension? And Leo's like, they're not monsters, Batman, they're turtles. And Batman's like, they have to be stopped and sent back. And Leo's like, they're not bad guys, Batman. So he's really into it. At the point that we stopped that, the Joker just showed up, which is Leo's favorite villain. So he's like, oh, let's keep going. And I'm like, no, we're going to wait and see if Joker escapes. I don't know what's going to happen. Ra's al Ghul is teaming up with the Shredder. So that's going to be the thing for now. And he's been liking that. So it's been kind of good to be able to show him that he's able to make the connection of, even though I saw the movie, holy shit, there's this comic, and he seems to be enjoying it quite a bit.
That's awesome. Great story.
So that's what that gives me a little hope to, even though there's an animated adaptation or a live action, that kids can still go back and enjoy another version of it in a non-iPad way. Paper, ink, that's it. So that's probably a product of just the fact that I'm his dad. You know what I mean? Like if I were a digital reader, I'd be showing it to him on an iPad or something. That's kind of what I wanted to share this week as far as what's been going on, because that was a pretty good memory. He went to the comic shop with me, pointed out at all the characters and saw that there was a new Sonic book, and he grabbed it from the shelf and picked it up. He wanted a little golden book as well, but he had to choose. He's getting to that age where I'm like, all right, well, do you want the Sonic comic or do you want the little golden book? And then he's like, I can't get both. I'm like, no, you can only get one. And then he makes a decision and that's it. So getting to that age, been practicing that with him.
Nice. Responsibilities.
Before we close out this week's episode, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or maybe a news bit that you came across that you feel we should discuss?
Yeah, I got a quick news bit. Trivia for you, and then this will be news at the same time. The Q3 2022 financial data was released by Nintendo for their overall sales total for Nintendo Switch games. So, and this includes some most recent releases. What do you think? Can you name a game that's in the top 5? Now, this is units sold all time for Nintendo Switch games. What do you think is in the top 5? Can you guess any of them?
Nintendo Switch, so it's going to be Pokemon. Not Scarlet and Violet, because I'm sure pre-orders are they counting games that haven't come out yet?
Yeah, but I don't know how you're going to go up against 6 years of data for a pre-order, if that makes sense.
Well, then the last Pokemon game that came out, Arceus, and then Pikachu and Eevee came out on Switch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are going to be in the top, you said 5.
Yeah, top 5.
Those are going to be in the top 5, and if you break them up, I wouldn't be shocked if Eevee and Pikachu are their own line items on there. So that's half the list if you want to count that. If you're saying pre-orders do count, I don't know what the pre-sales are in Scarlet and Violet. I wouldn't put them in top 5 though, because they're going to get a lot of holiday sales this year. So I don't think it's quite there yet for top 5. I want to say Breath of the Wild, because a lot of people did buy that, but I feel like it's going to be some weird, super casual game that maybe a lot of people picked up. But you know what? Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to go Breath of the Wild as in that top 5, and then I've got one slot left. Then I would go with, what was the Mario game? There was Galaxy 1 and 2. I don't think that's on there. Mario Kart, maybe. I don't know. I haven't heard too much hype about that one. Not Bayonetta. I think I can only come up with 4 that I feel confident about. Zelda, the 2, Pikachu and Eevee, and then Legends Arceus.
Okay. So you got one right.
Shit.
Breath of the Wild is number 4. And it has 27.79 million units sold. Number 5 is Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Oh, so shit. That's what I was forgetting. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's at 25.37 million units sold. So that's going to overcome Breath of the Wild here pretty shortly. And then rounding out the top 3, in third place is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with 29.53 million units. And then it jumps dramatically to number 2 with Animal Crossing New Horizons at 40.17 million units sold. Mind you, that game's only been out for 2 years.
Yeah, it came out during COVID.
So COVID did that game very well. And then the number one spot is, you mentioned it, but you didn't label it in top 5. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
That's shocking.
48.41 million units sold.
That's a scam.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't believe that one. They're lying.
And then the rest of the top 10. So we got 10th place, Pokemon Let's Go, 14.81 million. Ring Fit Adventure, that was another COVID one, 14.87 million units. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, 14.92 million. As bad as that game is, it's a Pokemon game, so it sells. Super Mario Party, 18.35 million. And then 6th place, Super Mario Odyssey, 24.40 million units sold.
Odyssey. So Mario Kart did way better than Odyssey. I didn't believe that, man. I really haven't heard a lot about Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's double. And the reason why is because it's the number one entry-level family game that they have. And they bundle it with so many different of their Switch units. And that counts as a sale as well. So that on top of just what game do you buy for your family? If it's not Mario Party, it's Mario Kart. And Mario Kart is just measures that good. Plus, it's an easy party game too. Like you go to that place, where Sam had his Player One. You can sit down and play Mario Kart all night. Like that's just a very good gathering type game for people to come together and socialize and play some Mario Kart. Smash Brothers is too, but that's just a different audience sometimes. Whereas Mario Kart is more of a younger and friendly environment. So it's interesting. I think all those numbers are very interesting. Yeah,
like you said, I only got one of them right there in Breath of the Wild. Mario Kart, holy shit. I guess that makes sense if you talk about bundling, which is why Wii Sports, I think, is still the highest selling or one of the highest selling games of all time because it was bundled with the Wii. So that part, I totally understand, but I did not expect Mario Kart to be number one.
Yeah. And fun fact, do you know what the number one selling game of all time for the last 10 or 11 years is?
So top selling game in the last 10 or 11 years, it's going to be a Call of Duty.
Nope.
Fortnite or Minecraft, if you have to buy those.
Nope.
I don't have any more guesses then. What is it?
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Come on, really?
More
than Mario Kart?
Yeah, Minecraft is right behind it. But Grand Theft Auto 5, because it's done so well and re-released so many different times, it's just the moneymaker. Most copies sold of all time in the past 11, I think it's 10 or 11 years.
So they're counting fucking re-releases too. That's insane.
Oh, 100%. That's why they keep re-releasing it. It's a cash cow.
Sure, yeah. I guess it's like when they re-release a movie in theaters.
Yep.
Well, not what I expected, but Minecraft needs that number one spot. I think that's a way better game, personally. Well, that's good. That's very interesting news. And Animal Crossing, though, that is a fucking monster of a game. I think even it did better overseas than in the US, didn't it? Or just everywhere?
It just did well everywhere. That game was anticipated for so long, and it just got this crazy, lucky release when it did. And the world shut down, and everybody was able to play Animal Crossing. It's wild.
Absolutely,
and people are
incredible.
still buying it.
Yeah, without COVID, I'm curious to see if Animal Crossing would even be on this list. But good on them, and good on that franchise too, because I know it has a pretty dedicated fan base, and they were asking for Animal Crossing for a while. They definitely were.
Oh, yeah.
And now the Pikmin fans were asking for Pikmin for a while, and now we're getting that. And then me and 4 other guys are asking for Star Fox.
I don't know, man. After that last one, I don't want another Star Fox.
I get it.
So bad.
Yeah, no, I'm in that camp of just re-release the N64 one again on that, like they did on the Switch Online, or give me a remake. I'll buy that, but I don't expect them to do any more Star Fox. To be honest with you, I get it. I understand why.
Star Fox Adventures remake. Let's go.
Yeah, that's nostalgic enough at this point. Yeah. Sure, I'd play it. Fuck it. Like, I actually like that game. I like Zelda, and they put Fox into it. It's the perfect combination. But there you have it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for sector number 534. Way more than 300. 534. Bobby, please let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on our Discord. So the links are below, I'm sure. And check out the Discord. We have some great conversations there. Always available to chat. And I am on Twitter at QBANSLIM. That's at Cuban Slim. I'm not totally active on there, but if you engage in conversation, I will reply. So I usually share some of the events that I go to for Pokemon. I do travel for the Pokemon Company. Also, coming up, I got a bunch of events. I'll be going to Brazil for the Latin American International Championships here Thanksgiving week. And then 1 week after that, I'll be in Toronto for the regional championships. And then 2 weeks from there, I'll be in Texas. I'll be in Arlington, Texas for regional championships. So some events that are upcoming. And I try to share some photos and goings on there, collectibles and stuff like that. So hit me up.
Perfect. As he mentioned, links to where you can find Bobby are in the description of the episode, and you can also find a link on everywhere you can find us at thereasonsimbroke.com. Bobby had mentioned sending in comic books to CGC. If you also like to get things slabbed, head on over to treefroggrading.com, and you can send in Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Dragon Ball Z to get graded. Especially if you're in the UK and you can save yourself on international shipping. If you're already in the UK, use the discount code BROKE for 5% off your submission order. So it's not just on one. You do get it on your entire order. It gets you 5% off, and it gives the show a little bit of a kickback when you use that code. So thank you once again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Bobby, and Brocat Core. All will be well. So since you brought up that Nintendo Switch list, I do have to ask, regardless of sales and data, here's what really matters. What's your favorite Nintendo Switch game?
I'm going to pick, it's a toss-up between Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pokemon Sword. And the reason why I choose that, it's not because I'm a Pokemon fan. And this answer will shed some light on it. Up until Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, I had never played through an entire playthrough of a Pokemon game. Because like I've said in the past, I didn't grow up on Pokemon. I don't have this like nostalgic feeling like a lot of people, like even you and your wife Kelly, you both have this certain place where, you know, Pokemon sits with you because the things you did with it and played and things that you can tie it to. So it holds a special place, which is why Pokemon is so popular amongst our age range or our culture, because of the look back that we have on it and where we can hold it in our hearts. Me, it's a lot different. So it's just the first game I was able to completely play through and finish, which was Let's Go Eevee. Now, I don't play that game a lot, so I can't really say it's my favorite, but that ties into Pokemon Sword. Pokemon Sword, I think I have close to I want to say like 800 hours in Pokemon Sword. And that was my second game that I ever finished and went through. I did all the post-game. I did all the post-game wrap-up. I did everything. When they do special events, I always go in and download those special, Pokemon that they're distributions and things like that. So I've put a lot of time into Sword. So I say that that's my favorite just because the amount of time that I've spent on it and went through and actually completed it completely. So it's different from an answer like, oh, I like this game. It's my favorite. I play it all the time. So I've had the game for 4 years now. So I have that many hours into it. I don't play it that much, but fun fact, like when I travel, I'll bring a bunch of games with me, even newer games. And for some reason, I'll plug in Sword and I'll just play Sword and Shiny Hunt. I won't play anything else. I have all these other Switch games I need to play and I don't touch them. I just plug in Sword and do shiny hunting with eggs. It's ridiculous. So there's obviously something about that game that catches me. I guess just the simple repetitive nature of, riding around on your bike and hatching eggs and trying to find the next shiny. And then, humble brag post about it. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's cool. I like it. I enjoy it. And that's probably why I got to say it's my favorite Switch game. I would love to say Breath of the Wild is, but I don't play Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Fun fact, I play Breath of the Wild on the Wii U because the Wii U is the better Breath of the Wild Switch, or Breath of the Wild version, because Breath of the Wild was created on the Wii U. It was ported over to the Switch. So those of you that have all these great thoughts about the Breath of the Wild on the Switch, you should probably go play it on a Wii U. It's actually better. Now, on your TV, the difference, of course, and what everybody has their thoughts on is Breath of the Wild playing it portable while you're driving around. I get it. That makes sense. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that the better version is actually on the Wii U, and that's where I play it.
Great answers. Awesome.